mostly my thoughts are informed around our various surveys, Afrobarometer surveys over the years on some of these issues. And I'll be sharing the data, particularly from our last two surveys, that is the round 9 and round 10. Round 10, I'll not share much, just what is in the public domain. We are still working on it, so I will share mostly from round 9. And Prof. Enim really spoke to some of the issues when he talked about participation. Generally, when we look at 32 years of democracy, what are Ghanaians thinking? There is still, the positive of it is that there's still high demand for democracy. Citizens still support democracy as a form of rule. But the question as to whether citizens still think, citizens toss around whether Ghana is a full democracy or a democracy with major problems or not a democracy at all, then we see that from, in fact, I'll say from round 9, you will see declining trends in the perceptions that the country is actually a democracy. And this is most worrying, where we see percentages of 81% now lowering to 61% saying that Ghana is the full democracy. When you look at also satisfaction, and you look at satisfaction with the way democracy works in Ghana, again, that have decreased over time. Citizens who say that they are fairly satisfied or very satisfied with the way democracy works, you would see the percentages decreasing, particularly up to 2022, we have 51%. So when you look at this, then the question around what could be the problem? When you look at political freedoms, the data shows that citizens' perceptions are that they have political freedoms. Majority of citizens say that they have the freedom to choose who they vote for. 96%, that's almost 10 in 10. They have freedom to join any political organization. They have freedoms to say what they think. Now, but when it comes to, okay, so we have freedom to say what we think and join any political organization. Are we taking advantage of this and participating in the governance space and political space? One of the frequent questions that Afrobarometer usually asks over time is whether citizens have attended any community meeting, join others to raise an issue. And you see what those who would say always, often, are less than 2 in 10 Ghanaians, are less than 20%. But those who say they have not attended meetings are on the high side, that they have never attended meeting. Now, whether they have raised issues, they have taken issues to any government official, contacted a traditional leader, assembly member, or their member of parliament, again, you see the same trend. A lot of people do not engage with the government officials. The percentages that say they have often engaged are less than 20%. The percentages that say they have contacted their assembly persons often or once is about 36% when you take the 2022 data. Percentages that have contacted their member of parliament is even much lower. You have 14%. This really shows a worrying trend. However, for our every 4 years popular participation, we see high percentages around there. So Ghanaians do love to vote. We have, if voted in the last election, that is the 2020 election, 81% indicated that they voted in the election. That is from the 2022 data. So it begs the question of what could be some of the issues that are really driving this. And if you look, Afrobarometer data also shows that clearly there are some issues that make Ghanaians not want to engage or not satisfied with the way democracy is supposed to bring development. Now, one of the things that we track is what is the most important problem that you want your government to address. Over time, particularly from 2022, management of the economy, education, healthcare, water supply, and infrastructure development have been constantly mentioned as issues that they want government to address. This, they are like the top 5, even though which comes first have varied over time. But really, these are always the issues. But if you look at the top 3, they usually have management of the economy, unemployment, healthcare, usually going toe to toe, and then infrastructure always coming as the top 3 when asked these questions. Levels of poverty from our survey, we usually have a question that assess citizen access to basic needs, that is cooking for food, cash income, water, and all that. And then we use that to calculate a lived experience in poverty, which we say poverty that you have experienced over the year. And when you look, when I look closely at that data, it also shows clearly that even in the recent data, because this is in the public domain, so I can share this, in the recent data shows that the number of citizens who say they have experienced poverty, the moderate and high lived poverty, have increased. This increase started in 2017 from 17%, and now we are at a 45% of citizens saying they experience poverty. This generally, the ratings of government on performance too have declined. The positive ratings have declined, and while the negative ratings have increased. If you look at this engagement, particularly among youth and women, they tend not to engage the government or their officials that much. Now, let's also using the data to look at issues around corruption. The perception that level of corruption have increased, have actually the citizens that say that number of corruption have increased in Ghana, level of corruption have increased and have also increased. Now we are at a high percentage of 74% of Ghanaians saying that level of corruption have increased in our recent survey compared to the 2022 data. And here, only 26% in our recent data, that is the 2024 data, shows that Ghanaians feel confident to report corruption without fear of retaliation, which is a big concern when we want to look at accountability and then transparency. So generally, these are some of the issues, and I'll delve more into some of whether citizens feel that they can access information or leaders listen. When asked around the issues of whether they are likely to get information that they need if they contacted their local government for plans and budgets, only 19% indicate that they feel they can get such information. Only 27% say they feel they can get access to school budgets. And then only 17% also indicates that they can get access to government contracts. That is from our 2022 data. As to whether they are likely to get somebody to take action, should they request for assistance from their local government, development assistance from their local government, our 2022 data shows that only 30% indicates that they are likely to get the action taken on their development needs. Report on corruption. If you report corruption, are you likely to get action taken? Only 25% say they are likely to get action taken. And we have 70% saying that they do not think they can get any action taken if they reported this. Do their leaders listen? Looking at the MPs and local government, our 2022 data shows that only 40% feel that their MPs listen often, and then only 35% feel that their local government, that is the assembly persons, listen. Trust also in institutions have really dived down over the past 10 years, particularly trust in public institutions. We see a lot of decline in the perception of public institutions, trust in public institutions somewhat and a lot, which is a very worrying trend. We have between 2012 and 2024, you see percentages drop ranging between 14 and 28% when you look at member of parliament, when you look at presidency, court, electoral commission, Ghana Armed Force, the ruling party, opposition party, which should be a thing of worry. But generally, we do have the support for the election going for us. People still support elections as the form of selecting leaders for the country over time. And yes, citizens still believe that their votes they can cast their votes in secrecy and no big person would get to know, powerful person would get to know who they voted for. So, but when you look at particularly, even though citizens have reported, high percentage of citizens have reported having voted, particularly when you take our 2024 data, when you look at voter apathy, it is growing. When you compare over time, it is growing. And the high percentages of voter apathy is around the youth and women who tend not to want to participate in these, and just the same way as in participating in civic spaces. So for what can we do differently? For now, we have the affirmative action bill going for us. However, that means that we need to implement this affirmative action we will have to think about implementation framework. We have to think about resource allocation, monitoring, and evaluation, bringing together various stakeholders to be part of this. We have to think about empowering and engaging civil society. We need to look at how, especially civil society that promote marginalized group participation, engagement, and general participation and governance space. We should look at introducing a framework for consultants, a framework for engagement, a structured framework for engagement, such that not only when manifestos are brought forward for us to vote for, that it's just being implemented, but at least there'll be a lot of engagement on this to inform and firm up the policy, the framework, and then the implementation of such policies. Getting citizens more involved, we need to think around innovations, we need to think around digitalization as well. The Afrobarometer data shows that more and more citizens are beginning to access, more citizens of course have access to smartphones, and they begin to access their news using internet. How do we leverage on these, that we can get more information to citizens, get them informed about government process, get them involved about government? How do we build? We need to build systems where we can actually use online platforms to be able to get citizens engaged in the governance processes. Even grievance mechanisms, can we have such platforms for grievance mechanisms? There are a lot of efforts. I know there are civil society efforts around, I know Mary will talk about that, around reporting corruption. But from the government side, how can we get this up? And so I'll end and say that for going forward, it shouldn't just be about the manifesto, because citizens are really growing dissatisfied. There's so much growing dissatisfaction. We need to look at how best to engage citizens, create knowledge and awareness on civic responsibilities and duties, and why citizens need to engage and not leave only the the plan for development and the development of the country to the politician. Thank you.